Hi there, welcome to this week market analysis. Right, so as usual, we'll get started by looking at the overall markets and I'll highlight some opportunities available for the week. Okay, this week, or I would say from last week to this week, has been pretty great. We did have two gold trades back to back that managed to hit our target. And earlier, or say late last week, earlier this week, we had the Aussie yen that just hit our target today, as well as crude oil as well. Okay, so pretty nice little 2 weeks of trade going in our favor. We do have a a silver trade running right now, but that particular trade very likely will get stopped out, but it was just part of it. Even if this trade got stopped out, we had a net pretty solid reward. Okay, because our average win is 1:2, right? So 4 trades of winning. If you just put a 1 hour to 2 hour, that would be an 8 hour in 4 trades, and then -1 if this is gonna hit our stop, then that would still be a net 7 hour returns, right? So it's pretty solid. So I'll walk you through the market, and then of course, when we talk about crude oil as well as the Aussie yen, I'll go a little bit detail into sharing with you the trade review, so that you can also pick up lessons from that, and in the future, okay, that will be something that you can apply it as well. Okay. So let's start off with the dollar index. Dollar index currently it's obviously coming down, and it's approaching the key area between the 50 and 618. I would expect some sort of a reaction around that 50 and 618, and for the market to start bouncing back up from there. Okay, and we'll definitely keep a lookout when the market enter that zone. If we can get a decent bounce, then we'll be expecting a simple three-wave move to the upside, and we'll be looking at bullish directional buys for the dollar. Okay. If you flip it to the euro, okay, so obviously that's a little bit on the inverse side of things. So we are looking at 618. Okay, again, if we can get some sort of a decent rejection off that 618, we might get some sort of a short-term sell trade moving forward, right? But of course, we just want to wait for the confirmation for price to really give us that reaction first, right? Because if the market doesn't react off the key level around 618, then there's really nothing that we're going to look to trade. Okay, so keep an eye on around that level, but again, you won't wait for the confirmation, that reaction from the market to give us the clue. GBP USD, short term here, we are expecting the continuation of the pullback, again towards a key level around 15618. Now, if you are a little bit more aggressive on the pound dollar, there is that opportunity that you can look to buy it up, all right, as part of a retracement trade. Personally, I wouldn't do that. Again, as I mentioned, is a little bit aggressive. I think overall bias right now is bearish, so if you're looking to trade this to the upside, we don't have a very clean needle momentum push at the moment as well, right? So this can continue to do very correctively, and I wouldn't want to be in that buy, right, if that's going to be the case. So yeah, the expectations for market to continue to pull back higher, but in terms of the setup, in terms of like would you enter in a particular trade, really boils back down to your style and the trading plan that you have. Okay, so that's on the pound dollar. Then we have the Aussie. Now Aussie dollar here, I do have a trade setup in place. And right now for Aussie dollar, what we're seeing is that we have this as a potential expanding ABC, right? This is the impulse leg, this is the corrective leg, and right now we're anticipating that if C is completed, then this would be starting a new move to the upside, right? So if that's going to be the case, then of course the invalidation level is here, and if we can get some sort of a nice little pullback, that would present a buy trade opportunity, right? So the key level on this is around the 0.65 to 0.6480. Okay, and if I bring you to the lower time frame, we do have a setup that is valid, right? So this setup is based on SMC model, right? You can see on the high time frame, we already have the directional bias in place. We already have the structure that I kind of talked about, right? So on the lower time frame over here, what we are seeing is more of like, do we have the conditions set up to execute a trade? So first thing here, in terms of like SMC model, we would like to see some sort of a liquidity swim, right? So you can see the market takes out that low and then kind of like reverses pretty quickly. We don't really have a confirmation in terms of like a change of character or a break of structure at the moment. Okay, price hasn't really break out from those highs. But what we can observe is some sort of a change in state of delivery. Okay, which means that the market took out, this series of bearish candle with momentum. We have a little bit of a kind of like order block, if you put it that way. And of course, right now, what I like about this is so far this pullback has been pretty corrective in nature. Okay, which is ideal for the structure perspective, right? Impulse, correction, impulse. Okay, so the entry right now that I'm looking at is around 6480. If we can get a continuation pullback towards 6480, that would present a nice little buy trade. Stop obviously would go below that swing low, right? Below that invalidation. And in terms of target, right? If you're conservative, you can aim for the swing high around 6540. If you are a little bit more ambitious, right, which I think in this case we can afford to go a little bit higher, we can actually aim at the previous swing highs, right, which is going to put you around 6585. You can even go for further targets and basically anticipate that this would build into a bigger tree wave development, right, where then you will anticipate the market to break off that highs. Okay, so you can have multiple targets, and that makes this trade very interesting because you can get involved, with a pretty minimal stop loss, right, around 30 pips, and you can aim for, huge upside, right? So let's just say somewhere around the 6625 as your final target, right? That would put a risk reward of about 4.6. Kind of round down a little bit, that would be at 4.5, right? So that will put you at a very decent risk reward ratio, right, with a minimum risk involved. Okay, so that's on the Aussie. Definitely a pair that you want to have it in your watch list for the week. Okay. Next up we have the dollar Canadian. Okay, so dollar Canadian right now is pulling back. We can't expect the market to come back and retest the zone around the 50 and 618. But I do expect the market to have some sort of a reaction around that 50 and 618. Okay, and I would expect this to actually bounce back higher from there. Okay, so I'm overall looking at potential buy around that zone. If you're combining with the SMC model, that would be great as well, because then this would be some sort of a liquidity level. Then the market can take it out and then bounce back, right? So I'll be interested to look for a buy trade setup around that key level to get involved, and we'll expect this as a simple WXY, right? Simple tree wave move. Okay, so something that we can look into throughout the week. We might get the entry opportunity maybe closer towards the end of this week, right? So again, this would be something you want to pay attention on. Then we have the dollar yen. Dollar yen here, the anticipation for this week is for market to pull back, which is already doing so. And the area that we expect the market to pull back towards is somewhere between 145.9 to 145.1. right now there's really no targets, or say no setup for us to actually take the trade. So I would personally just let this play out, and maybe when the market comes back towards the key level, we'll look for entry on the buy side instead, right? Because the short-term sell as of now, there's no clear setup based on the setups and the strategies that I'm using. Okay, so that's on the dollar yen. Then we have gold. If I were to update this very, very quickly, right? Gold had a very nice little bounce to the upside. Managed to also take out the swing highs here. Okay, so momentum is definitely there, is definitely bullish bias. Any sort of a pullback would present a buy trade opportunity. Okay, now the key here is obviously wait for the pullback. Okay, you don't want to be buying at the top. Okay, you just want to wait for the pullback first. So that might take a little bit of while. But again, you want to have this in your watch list. Again, you might get a pullback starting today, tomorrow, and then the setup would form maybe on Thursday or Friday, right? So that's on gold. Do keep an eye on that, right? So definitely key ones to look out for. Then we have silver, right? So silver, I kind of talked a little bit at the start of today's session, where I mentioned, we were expecting this pullback. But I think right now, looking at things go, is definitely not in favor of the particular trade, right? So if this really continue higher and then take out that high, we also want to observe how price is going to develop, right? Is it going to be a eventual fake break, liquidity sweep, and the market just push back down? Or is it going to be a genuine break and then that's it? This is all the correction it is, and then we're going to start to see more upside. We'll need to see how price is going to break out, right? If it's will to break out from here, right? Alternatively, if this just comes back down, then this will be a prime area to look for buy trade, okay? Because then that would be a nice little correction like this. So yeah, silver, probably if you're not in any particular position, silver right now, it's just best to stay away from it. Give time the market to develop, then you come back in the future. Alright, then I'll talk a little bit about crude oil. Okay, crude oil is where we had a nice little trade that hits our target today as well. So if you take a look at the structure, right, we have this very, very corrective move. Right, then the market put in an impulsive leg after breaking this high, after breaking that low, right? So that's a prime condition for our setup. Okay, now once we get that, we also have this, impulsive leg to downside. We basically would like to see a pullback, and then we'll look to trade to the downside. Okay, the combination of time frame I use to execute is always going to be 4 hour for a higher time frame as part of my directional bias, and then I'll go down to the hourly, okay, as part of my entry time frame. So the 4 will give me an overarching structure in the directional bias to focus, right? In this case here, we're looking at downside. And then on the hourly is where I'll look for the conditions that needs to be fulfilled in order for me to execute a sell. Okay, so in this case, it's based on the SMC, right? Very similar. That's the only SMC model that I use to execute. I share with you earlier as well a little bit. You can see that this swing high is taken out, and then the market reverses and it takes out this low. Right, so you have a change in state of delivery, you have the change corrector, you have the liquidity sweep perfect, you have that momentum shift to the downside as well, which gives you that fair value gap. Okay, and then we take from swing high to swing low, we get that Fibonacci confluences with the fair value gap. So obviously that's our entry point, that's our stop, and we're just aiming for this low. Right, we're not going for an extended target because the context of this trade is simply a retracement trade. Okay, we are not looking to trade it in the long run because we're just trading this pullback, right? We're just trading this pullback towards this zone. So it's a very, very short-term retracement trade, and if price hits our target, which it does, that's good enough, right? We don't want to be greedy, you don't want to aim for too much. Okay, so very, very simple setup, which is repeatable, something that you can also use it in the future. Okay, and that's where you want to take away from today's session as well, right? identify what are conditions that are looking into for the setup, and then you can then apply that in the future, when you're looking for your own setups too. Right, so that's on the crude oil. Very, very nice, decent trade. S&P 500 as of now, I would suggest to be patient. Okay, we are definitely bullish and biased, but the market is near the top. Okay, every time it's near the top, you don't want to be buying it. If it's near the bottom, obviously you don't want to be selling it. If you want to buy, you wait for price to pull back, right? Then you get a better risk to reward ratio because your stop loss will be narrower, okay, and then your targets can be wider. So yeah, this one here we're interested in buy, but we don't have a pullback yet. Okay, so just be patient, wait for price to pull back, and then we'll look for the entry to get involved. Okay, so that's on the S&P. Then we have the GBP JPY. Okay, now this pair here is pretty clear in terms of the direction I'm interested to trade. I'm actually interested in the upside for this. Okay, very, very straightforward as well. We have this low, move higher, come back down, move higher, break that. Currently developing very, very correctively. We have the channel structure, so we have some confluences around that 50 and 618 as well. If price comes back to this territory, we'll love to see some sort of a buy setup that we can look to execute, and then we'll look to trade this all the way back up, right? So this is a classic higher time frame example where if you go down to the lower time frame to look for entry, you would have multiple extended take profit levels that you can aim for. You can have like TP1, TP2, TP3, right? Because we are trading the bigger move eventually. Okay, so again, this one you definitely want to have it in your watch list. I think there's a very good possibility we'll get something interesting within the week. Whether we're going to execute a trade within the week or next week depends, but definitely an opportunity here that you want to keep an eye on. Alright, then we have Aussie Yen, which we had a decent trade that just hits our target today as well. I'll talk about the trade review so you can learn from it. So Aussie Yen here, basically what we are still expecting is the pullback, right? Now you can see that the market actually took out a very significant high, okay, and again, every time the market, make a move to the upside, there are bound to be some sort of a pullback, right? And that's what we always expect. So this particular trade that I got involved right in the sell is basically a pullback trade. Okay, it's simply we are expecting the market to pull back after an extended move. Do I have the opportunity to capitalize on short-term move, right, where it's gonna do its retracement? So this is where I go down to the lower time frame, and you can see the model of the SMC here in place as well, right? Very classic model, right? You have your high here gets taken out, then the market instantly reverses and then takes out the low, right? So you have the liquidity swept with the breaker structure, and as the market comes down, you can see it leaves behind the feather gap as well, okay, which very nicely confluences with the 67 fit, which is where the market actually reacted off our entry point. Okay, so obviously stop goes above here, target is just this low, right? Very conservative. We're not going for extended target again because the context of this trade is a retracement trade. We are basically just looking at this retracement, and then the market may start to continue higher or whatsoever, right? So we're not going for extended targets. Okay, so again, very, very classic setup, right? You can see the similarity in that. Liquidity swept, whether you have a change in state of delivery, change in corrector or break structure, feather gap, wait for the market to pull back. That's the trade, right? You can look at this. Very similar, very repeatable. That's the beauty of it, right? Very systematic kind of setup. Okay, so moving forward for Aussie Yen, we are expecting this to come down potentially a little bit deeper, but I'm not interested in sell right now. Okay, we got out of the sell trade with profits. We just wait for the next setup. Okay, so this one here, nothing much. Pound Ort, I would be patient on this as well. The reason, because you can see the market is in a huge consolidation phase, right? We do have some inner structure development, but it's not the cleanest that we want to be trading on. Okay, we might be able to see that there is a little bit of a liquidity sweep break of structure as well, and then if this pulls back to the order block, there might be an opportunity to take this up as a simple 1 2 3. But it's a little bit conflicting, right? Because we are in a massive range, and the overarching direction here can also be the case where this is the top and this is basically doing something like that. All right, so there is no kind of like further alignment, and that's the reason why I'm just gonna be staying on the sidelines on this right now. There are valid setups. It's just something that I'm not comfortable in taking because we don't take every setup, right? We want to have the context of the trade as well. Is that setup high probability of it just gonna be a valid one, right? So I'm not in chase of a trade as well, right? I would rather be only looking at higher quality ones, and things like this in case like GBP I'll just put it aside for now. All right. Then we have Bitcoin. Lastly, over here on my screen, Bitcoin here we are expecting bullish bias. I think that's quite straightforward. There's really no reason to be selling BTC at the moment. In the near term here, we're looking at a simple pullback, right? Again, if the market can come into this territory, that's great. That's the area that we'll be interested to look for the buy trade. It may or may not go towards that area, right? This can just form as a triangle and then it starts to pop. Very possible as well. So we'll see, right? Obviously, I wouldn't know what's gonna happen. But if the market does give us that opportunity and does pull back towards a key area, that will be a zone that you can definitely look out for in terms of like buy trade. Okay, and how far can Bitcoin really go? It's really no limit to the upside right now. This is its all-time high. Would it go higher from there? Yes, right. I'm pretty sure Bitcoin can actually break and continue to move and develop all-time highs. Right? So the bias is pretty straightforward. The thing here is just simply wait for setup. If you have your strategy, obviously, you want based on that. But the idea is just don't buy at the high point, right? Always wait for the pullback to get involved in it. All good? Good. Okay, quick one. Any questions from the floor? Any questions that you have? All good? Okay, so if there's no question, hopefully today's session has been clear. Okay, and giving you some opportunities and things to focus on for the week as well. Okay, so that's all the best for the week, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Okay, good night.